so many that lost their businesses during that time. So good morning and welcome to our show. This is Rocio, Ortiz, Luevano, and I'm Becky Norwood. I'm with Spotlight Publishing, and this TV show is designed to help authors really get their message out to the world and to really provide the tools, the tips, the resources, and spotlight some of our most amazing authors and really shed the light on the work and the heart that they bring to the world. So we have Rocio today as one of our authors, and her and I were actually authors in the same book. We're co-authors in this book, Amazing Woman, It's Your Time to Emerge. And Rocio, you wrote, which chapter was it? I forgot to even look today. This is not right.
Chapter 1.
Yes, and emerge in the power of your sacred soul. So I want to properly introduce Rocio and make sure you catch the pure essence of who she is and what she's what she brings to the world. So she's a licensed clinical social worker and a supervisor for Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health's Young Mothers and Babies Full Service Partnership Program. Wow. She's worked with vulnerable populations for over 20 years and almost a decade providing mental health services to young at-risk mothers and very young children. She has a bachelor's degree in sociology and a master's in social work. More recently, she's graduated from the UC Davis Napa Infant Parent Mental Health Fellowship and is endorsed by the state of California as an infant, family, early childhood mental health specialist. She is also a Reiki master trained in first and second degree Reiki. Her passion is integrating neuroscience with non-traditional and spiritual practices into clinical work. She's a second generation Latina, daughter of Mexican immigrant parents. She's married and has one son. Beautiful. So, Rocio, thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Becky.
So excited for this conversation today, and that you would, that you're available to show up here for this beautiful conversation about being a part of this authoring in this amazing book, Amazing Woman, It's Your Time to Emerge. And the subtitle is How Women Are Discovering and Harnessing the Infinite Power to Manifest Their Evolving Purpose. So your chapter was really touched me. And I kind of wanted to open the conversation with some of your journey and talking about your journey to being who you are and what you do today and what that has meant to you.
Yeah, so thank you again for having me here. It's a pleasure, Becky.
You're awesome.
Thank you. So I think I have to give a little bit of a background on I think what led me to this point. And it's not exactly discussed in the chapter, but I would say that the pivotal moment for me was when I realized that I found myself in a marriage that was less than optimal. Just to kind of give like a very brief scenario, it was something like out of Sons of Anarchy. I can't say much more than that.
That sums it up pretty good.
Yeah. So, I to this day I ask myself, what happened? But anyhow, when I finally woke up and realized I need to pull myself away from this situation, and my husband was actually a really good person, like most of us, right? Most people are good people, but we unfortunately make poor choices along the way. And so he had been making some choices, and the ultimate choice, I said, I can no longer remain in this marriage. And more specifically, because I realized the significant impact that this would have on our son. And so I think that was truly the crucial moment when I realized I need to make a change. Something needs to happen. And so I had this chance encounter with an intuitive healer. A friend of mine encouraged me to meet with her. I had already been through the traditional therapy, couples therapy, marriage encounters. I felt like I had tried it all. And so at that point, I thought, what do I have to lose? It's not something I'm familiar with, but why not? So I think it was sort of the beginning of my intuition or spirit really guiding me, right? So I met with this woman, and she basically said, if you remain in this marriage, you will become a shell of a woman. And do you want that for yourself? But most importantly, do you want that for your son? And again, that was all I needed to hear, that it would potentially have an impact on my son. And what kind of an example would I be giving him if I remained in that situation? So that's really where it all really started.
That's it's always a time where, especially when it affects our children, that sometimes we want what we won't do for ourselves, we will do for our children,
Exactly.
So what did you discover about yourself as far as what came about from that journey, from that starting point, and what discoveries did you make as far as the person that you are, the woman that you are?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I'm still discovering myself, right? Like most of us.
We are. Unending.
A work in progress for sure. But I think it was realizing, first of all, that I had the potential or the abilities to overcome fear. Fear was definitely a factor. I even though I looking back, I thought, why? I mean, it's hard to move through divorce ordinarily, but I think looking back, I realized, well, I was able to overcome the fear, and then I realized, I think there's much more to uncover here. I think I've through my own experience, I can share this with other women and inform them about the potentials that we have, the abilities that we have as women to overcome adversity, right? And I think also recognizing that as we're moving away from divorce or dissolving a marriage or whatever that may be, we don't have to do it in a we don't need to create a struggle.
Right.
We don't need to create conflict. We don't need to create enemy images of the other, right? Because I feel like for so long that's been the dominant paradigm, I think,
It
where
has.
right, where
Yeah.
we hear, you know, gosh, so and so just went through a divorce, and there it's been a real battle over property, over the children, and just I I I just realized I don't want to go through that. And because it's so easy, it could have been very easy for me to have created a lot of that conflict, but somewhere along the line, and maybe it started with that intuitive encounter, because she kind of reminded me about tapping into my own femininity, tapping into spiritual practices. And she left it pretty broad. She said, look into Buddhism, look into yoga, tap into your own Catholic upbringing. And so for me, Mother Mary, the Virgin Mary has been my my spirit guide, and so I feel very guided and comforted by her in all times. So I think it's been a number of
Journey.
things. Yeah, yeah.
It's fascinating because usually the darkest times, the times where we really, really, really have to go deep, and
Yeah.
we search and we ask a lot of questions, and our world has been rocked. Oftentimes, those are the things that lead us to the work that we do now. What we bring
Yeah.
to the world now. And I love your quote in the book, because each of our chapters started with a quote. It says, "Trusting in the power of your sacred soul will guide you to profound healing that gives way to the genuine expression of your authentic purpose, a purpose motivated by personal growth, expansion, transformation, and service." And that, to me, that summarizes in such a beautiful way what most of us are. I think people in general are just amazing, and majority of people are good. Yeah, there's bad
Yeah.
in the world, but what I have seen more and more and more is that many of us are standing up and shining our lights and showing there's a different way. There's goodness out there, and really leading by example in the work that we do, that we bring to the world. And look what you're doing as far as working with at-risk mothers and young children, and it's amazing, because we're also needed in whatever ways and whatever capacities that we have to really shine our light. And so how do you say that this divorce that you went through, and you raising a child and being a single mom and then moving on with your life and discovering your life purpose, how has it prepared you for where you are today?
Oh, wow. I think it's in so many ways. It has, again, I think it's made me realize that I have of the voice to shed light on some um, some things that we tend to see, like we were saying earlier about going through divorce in a conflictive kind of way, but also just looking at the capacities of women and our resilience and our ability um, to share our, like you said earlier as well, like to share our gifts and our talents, and like just leading by example, right? If we heal ourselves, then we have the potential to heal others. We have the potential to heal generations. We have the potential to heal so many, and the impact that can have on our future, I think is pretty extraordinary. And so I don't know if I'm answering the question.
You are. You are. So,
I feel like I went off on a tangent.
You talk about multidimensional healing practices that you dove into. How does that relate to the work you do, secular, the career, to what you're doing, and how does that work? I'll tie into what you're already doing.
Yeah, so that's a good question. And actually, I have to be a little bit careful about introducing some of the Reiki inspired modalities into my work, because I work ultimately I work for a government agency. And so I talk about it and I share it with my staff and with other colleagues, and basically just kind of explain, there's so much value in tapping into these other healing practices. Sometimes it's not enough to just provide the traditional psychotherapy. Sometimes we have to look into other realms and see if that can potentially help our clients. But I'm aware of also, because I kind of got in trouble once for being the spiritual rebel. I kind of got in trouble. So I think since then I've had to put a little pause on, or shall I say, I've had to censor myself a little bit about what I do. But I just, maybe it's in the process, but I do see that maybe in the future I'll be able to kind of merge the two together, right? To merge a little bit more of my passion for Reiki, also for psychotherapy. So Perk, which was the Shabad that I really dove into and immersed myself in, which I found extraordinarily healing as well. And explaining to folks, there's there is a reason why we do these things. There's a reason why we practice chanting. There's a reason why we, at least in the Catholic faith, why we pray the rosary, but nobody really goes deeper. People don't really explain, and this is something that I learned recently when I was doing my fellowship in Napa, that when we engage in rhythmic, patterned, repetitive somatosensory experiences, that's when true healing happens. And so when I looked back, I thought, oh, so that was all part of my own healing. When I was doing the chanting, when I was practicing the Reiki, when I was praying the rosary, it was all, it was repetitive. It was somatosensory. It was rhythmic. Because I was doing some Zumba and exercising at the time, more so at the time than I'm doing now.
Let's keep up with it.
Yeah, so I know it's there, but it was when I realized that the merging of all of these things has the potential to create more profound healing. I thought, oh, this makes sense, and this is important to share. I think I want to say that in older cultures or more maybe in historically, societies have practiced some of these things and very intentionally creating healing, but we've we've moved away from that so much that we don't realize we've got so many resources that we could access.
There is, and it's at stopping and paying attention to those resources that we have. Every couple of weeks, I go on the weekend to. It's called Angel Revive, and we do yoga, qigong, tai chi, and then we also have a meditation where they have the Buddhist the Om, and they also have Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And it's this chant. But when I get done with that, it's 2.5 hours that we do it. It's a group of us, and it is so fascinating how it feels, And the last time I went, the teacher did where we're in a circle and we're all arm's length away from each other, and we don't touch, but you can feel the vibrational between each person when we get to a certain point. It's fascinating, and there's so much healing that comes from that. And it's just the actually remembering to do it on a regular basis, because it's so easy to get caught up in the busy of life. And we all get busy, and that's just life, but it is very easy to get caught up and totally leave that behind.
Yeah. It's funny that you said that when you do that, you're in a circle, because that's how I started doing or practicing Soperk. It was at a women's circle, and a place in Pasadena called the Awareness Center with a beautiful soul, Marsha Canestrano, and she was the Kundalini yoga teacher who would lead us in this practice, and it was a group of women, and we would sit in a circle and we would chant, and it's exactly what you're describing, right? It's this amazing frequency energy that is emitted through that practice, and it's just unbelievably healing, It's
very much. Well, thank you for what you're doing in the world, and I'm just loving this conversation. We do have another guest we need to bring on, and we'll stop for just a really short break, and then I'll introduce our other guest, and then we'll bring both of you on together and complete the conversation. But thank you for the beauty of what you bring to the world.
Thank you, awesome. Becky. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. We'll stop for just a quick break. Alex, it's wonderful to have you here. And I know that was kind of an interesting conversation for you to sit in the background and hear.
You would be surprised how much I actually can relate to it. I just got back from, I actually spent a few months down in Ecuador practicing Kundalini yoga myself. So I actually found a lot of value in it.
Very, very cool. Well, I wanted to introduce Alex. He brings some work to the world that really supports authors, and part of our show is designed not just to showcase our authors, but also to showcase those who help authors bring their work to the world in amazing ways and get exposure for their books. And specifically, we will be talking to him about Amazon ads and how he pulls that together to I always say that a book will get lost in the cobwebs of cyberspace if you're not doing the right kind of marketing. And a book is not easy to bring to the world. There's a lot of work that goes into it. But I wanted to properly introduce you with your bio so that others can see what you're up to. It says, upon graduation from Virginia Tech, he co-authored a book titled Experience Over Degrees, which became an Amazon bestseller. Ads were a different story. We lost hundreds and gave up. We had someone set them up and then forgot about them. Years later, our book still regularly ranks in the top 10 of various categories purely from the Amazon ads you run. He combined his background in technology with years of spent learning the methods that it is also, I got it all mixed up here. He combined his background in technology with years of learning the methods that almost any book can run profitable ads with profitable Amazon ads. They now manage 150 accounts, which allows them to be small enough to know what each author cares about while being large enough to know what works and what doesn't. Nothing brings them more joy than to help an author bring their message to the world. So that's beautiful. And I would like to hear a little bit more about your background in going to Ecuador. But let's talk about what happened for you in this book, Experience Over Degrees, and that journey to figuring out, the marketing aspect of it for so many is so difficult. And so what was your journey there?
Absolutely. So a good friend of mine, Rishabh Kanal, he has an amazing backstory. He was a war refugee from Nepal, and myself coming from a very small farming town in rural Australia. We both ended up meeting at Virginia Tech, and we were both two students who didn't necessarily have the best GPAs. We were good students, but we didn't have the best GPAs. And yet come our senior year, we were getting interviews with Google, and Microsoft was flying me to Texas, and LinkedIn was flying Rashad to San Francisco. And we were getting wonderful interviews that a lot of students would dream of, who had better GPAs than us. And what it came down to is just how we spent our time in college was more focused on getting experiences and working for various startups and working jobs constantly, and really just getting a full breadth of experience that end up being transferable skills that you can take into the workplace. And so what we felt we could contribute upon graduation actually started from a podcast where we would bring on the likes of Wes Bush, who was the then CEO of Northrop Grumman, or Wynn Sheridan, who's founder of multiple companies. Bruce Thompson basically developed all of Virginia Beach. And the list goes on. We had the name escapes me at this point, but we actually had the founder or the director of the Super Bowl came on. There was many different personalities who we were able to get in contact with. And what it came down to, and the message that they all shared, was just they really focused on getting experience. And so we kept getting asked by a lot of our peers about, how are we doing what we were doing? And so what we ended up doing was just putting this into a book that we could then share with our friends, and ended up becoming a bit bigger than that. But like you were saying, the marketing portion of it, you release it and then, you just can't expect people to just come buy your book. You have to get creative. You have to look for opportunities where that book could be valuable. And so one of those areas that we were initially told was valuable was Amazon ads, and getting into that is no easy task.
No, I shy away from it.
And authors don't want to focus on it. They want to focus on what they enjoy, which is changing the world and writing words that are really going to resonate with someone. And so where we ended up needing to just, we realized we need to take a step back and actually learn this thing for ourselves. And in doing that, getting good at it, then I had a few authors reaching out saying, hey, I see the success you're having. Can you take a look at my book? And now, a little over a year later and about 150 clients, in the works, and here we are. So it's been a great journey, but a lot of it's just getting creative with your book as well. One of the things we did early on was we reached out to basically every university in the US, a list of over 2,000, and basically said, hey, we would love, to provide our book to your students for free as well, just because we believed in the message strong enough. And so we actually had a good amount of universities, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, a few different ones, obviously Virginia Tech, since we're the alumni of Virginia Tech, who shared it with their students, which was a really good feeling. That's the goal, is just get creative, use as many outlets as you can, and share your message.
There are so many amazing methods to really keep our book out, whether it's speaking from the stage, getting on podcasts, Facebook ads, our marketing, whether we're our social media, all the things that we have available at our fingertips. But okay, number one is time, making sure we get the time to do it correctly. Because most of us, when we're authoring or we're serving the world in a different way, the marketing just feels monumental. It just seems like, oh, that's just too hard. That's way out of my scope. But there is still, I have had authors come back to me and said, well, yes, I became an international bestseller. I'm in 15, 20, 30 categories, and it was wonderful and it's exciting, but my book's not selling now, and that just, that really hurts my heart, because I know what work it takes to bring a book to the world in the right way. And it's no simple feat. And usually that very book is something that you pour out your heart and soul, in what you want to share with the world. And when it's not selling, it feels like, wow, that was a big waste. And, there is ways. And so let's look at the Amazon ads and why. I've interviewed people on many different things, and I have spoken before I met you. I spoke to a number of people that do Amazon ads, but no one really clicked in as far as how you described it. And I would like to know what makes you and your company so different in how you present it and how you work with the ads.
Sure, absolutely. So, and first of all, Becky, I couldn't agree more. There was one email I got like 2 weeks ago that almost made me cry, from an author who was basically just like, I spent 6 years working on this book, pouring my heart and soul into it, and it just doesn't sell. And that's, I think it comes back to the main thing is just passion for us. We really enjoy what we do. As a fellow author, I understand how it feels to have your book actually being read by people. And so there's a couple of different things that allow us to really be good at what we do. Like you mentioned in the bio, is that passion for technology. We built a program that basically automates a lot of the work so that we can actually provide this service at a fee that is reasonable to the author. When most people are charging $300, $400 startup costs, we have no startup fee. And that's also because, we're not going to stand here and say that we can make every single book work. We believe that we wouldn't do this if we didn't believe we were the best at what we did. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure there is as little risk for the author as possible. So we don't do that startup fee whatsoever. But in terms of what else makes us successful is just trial and error. Because we have so many accounts, we're able to really test out so many different strategies. And I actually just released the Advanced Amazon Ads masterclass last week, which was a great accomplishment for us in terms of being able to really compile all that data that we've learned over the past year and be able to put it into something where authors, if they're multi-book authors and they want to really control the marketing, then they can pursue that avenue themselves and have a course teach them that. But it really comes down to, we have a absolutely incredible team. We're a team of 3. We have Gabby, who handles the author experience and makes sure that authors' needs are really being met. And then we have Josh, who is our back-end data genius, our data lead, who really handles a lot of the realizations that we have month over month and compiling data in an actionable way. And so, what that comes down to is just a team that's really dedicated to consistently getting better month over month, because if you're not growing, you're dying. So we are just focused on getting better and better at every aspect of what we do.
Well, I think that's the whole success of life, is being willing to and open to continually learn, to what's the best, what's working now. And in the publishing realm, oh my goodness, it feels like every month there's something more to learn, because there's so much at our fingertips that we have that becomes available. And it was not available a few years ago, or even 6 months ago, 3 months ago, but it's being open and willing to constantly learn. And really understand what makes a book be found, what is going to help that book keep on selling, and the resources that are available. We have a lot of it, but most of us don't understand it, and which is the key. So what you're bringing to the world is really important. So when in getting this into this, you talk about technology. How does the tech part make a difference? I know you mentioned it briefly about understanding the tech, and that because you're able to automate so much of this, then you're able to serve more clients, do more to bring to the world. How does that fit into the picture?
Sure, absolutely. So it was funny. It was a Python program. I don't know. Some of your listeners, watchers here today might be a little bit more familiar with the tech side of things, but coming out of school, my degree was basically a background in a lot of different technologies. And so one of those technologies was a development tool called Python. And so what you're actually able to do is automate a lot of computer work, very repetitive tasks with that. And so taking a little bit of background knowledge and then a whole lot of YouTube, which is just an amazing tool for anyone today, I was able to build out a program that does a lot of the setup that would normally take an author 12, 14 hours to do it as extensively as we do it. And so that, again, equates to dollar value. When you have an author who, instead of spending 12, 14 hours setting those up, or even us, where if we were spending that, getting paid, our rate is $50 a month, you can do 50 divided by, 12 hours. It's not a great number.
That is not good.
You can't run a business that way. And so that automation just allows us to hit economies of scale and actually really be able to provide authors with a very substantial service without needing to put in the man hours and the labor to do it.
That's beautiful. Wow. And I always just marvel at the young people today because, I didn't have a computer until I was, way further in life. And even when I homeschooled my two daughters, and we didn't have computers even during that time until about the time they were ready to be done with being homeschooled. And the young people today, I look at my grandchildren, and honestly, they just totally amaze me because I think they're born knowing how to work with technology and run computers and cell phones and stuff. And I'm still like, and how do you do this? Can you show me again? And so it's beautiful what's really at our fingertips. And I think our world just continually evolves, and what's available to us now. My grandson, he's just turned 9, but he has hated being in cars a whole lot because he's from divided family. So he lives 1 week with his dad and 1 week with his mom, and he just simply hates the road time, the hours and hours. And when school was in session without COVID, the weeks that he stayed with his mom, it meant an hour there to drive to school and an hour back home. And Mimi, he always calls me Mimi, I just hate this. I don't want to be in the car. And I said, well, by the time you're grown up, probably you'll go up in this machine and you go, zoom, and then you'll be there. And he goes, oh, well, that would make me really, really happy. But look at what's available to us now. So that's not too far-fetched to really think about what we have, that's happened, that's coming into our world, that the young people just, that's what they're born with it. I think they've been exposed to it. And I think, I don't believe in evolution as in we've come from the apes, but I think that we continually evolve.
I agree. And yeah, there's many different ways that our technology is really testing our brains, which is really interesting. But going back to the car thing, I find travel to be one of my favorite things. I absolutely love flying because you have nowhere to go. You are stuck in a seat for X amount of hours. You might as well make that productive time. So I will oftentimes knock out an entire book on a plane, or it's funny that you mentioned that. The initial Python program, there are obviously many versions down the road, but the initial one that I wrote was actually on a plane from Frankfurt, Germany to Toronto. And I wrote the program on the plane. I absolutely love using travel as productive time. So hopefully your grandson can turn that into some productive time.
I wish he had you to help kind of guide him along, because he's a brilliant kid. And I don't think he's being challenged enough right now, because he hasn't been in the classroom and all the stuff that's going on. But I just have to have faith and trust that that'll come to be. What I'd like to do is bring Rocio back on for this conversation and kind of talk about, I know it's getting off of the subject matter that we were going to discuss. And for anybody that's watching this show now or will, we have Alex's website. You can check him out through his website. Reach out to him if you are an author and really want to have a book start to soar and really get found and read, and for your message to be heard. Then look up and see what he is offering. But I'd like to kind of steer this conversation, because you mentioned Ecuador and you mentioned all the things that you're doing. I'd like to bring Rocio back to the conversation and just share that journey. Both of you, all three of us share this journey of what this was for you, and tell us about your trip to Ecuador.
Yeah, so I quit my 9-to-5 actually at the end of 2019 with the understanding that I was going to go travel the world. My mom works for American Airlines, and I had flight benefits until the age of 24, which I turned last October. And so up until that time, I had a year until I was going to lose those flight benefits. And so I decided I was going to go travel the world. And then this little thing called COVID hit. So I didn't quite pan out the way I planned on it. So it was more longer term visits in places for, living a place for 3 to 4 months where I could still do it in a, socially conscious way. And one of those, when things started to really get better, especially down in Ecuador, and they opened up their borders again, I was on one of the first flights into the country and actually lived in a small town called Montanita on the coast. And it's got a special place in my heart. But there was a guy down there named Dennis, who a very, very, Akashic Records sort of individual who is very focused on the spiritual side of things, which I hadn't necessarily been exposed to too much in my life. And really, even coming back into Western society here in San Diego, you just realize that we are so poorly enabled to really deal with a lot of our problems that we're facing today. And obviously a lot of them are actually due to technology. So the thing that is helping us thrive is also the thing that has really caused a lot of spiritual issues as well. And so it was really wonderful. He introduced me to a thing called Kundalini Yoga, which is funny. When I heard you mention that, I was laughing how much life ends up coming full circle. But that was something that really helped me. And there's sort of the chanting portion of it, and the rhythm of it really does just give you insight and a healing that you just don't really receive in any other form of what Western culture provides to you.
Mm-hmm. How beautiful. That is just fascinating to me, because I know that as we get caught up in the busies of life, sometimes we put those things aside, and then we're noticing, well, I'm a little grumpy today or whatever that's going on, and then go back to it. You realize, well, this is something that has to be that really highly necessary to be a continual practice.
Absolutely.
How about for you, Rocio? What's been your journey as far as learning that and what it has done for you?
Yeah. I very similar. I think, when I was first introduced to Kundalini Yoga, I was just kind of doing it without any, I don't know. I was just kind of open about it and just hoping that it would help me in some sort of way. And as I started practicing it more and more, I realized, there's this like untapped potential with Kundalini Yoga, with just spiritual practices in general that I don't think we give enough attention to. And this may be a little bit even more off topic, but not related to Kundalini Yoga. But as I was hearing you guys talk about like authors who feel the struggle about not being able to sell their books, or things go stagnant, I feel like even there's like this opportunity to tap into the spiritual, right? Like I follow Abraham Hicks,
Mm-hmm.
and she'll talk about, if we pay attention to or if we focus on the negative or on the what does she call it, the contrast, then we're not looking at the potential of what could really happen. And so I'm just wondering if some of those authors could practice some of those Abraham Hicks teachings and envision themselves, like, oh, my book is a best-selling book and it's going to sell, millions of copies, and just kind of projecting that instead of focusing on the fact that it's not selling right now. Maybe right now it's not, but what are you doing that is pushing you away from that that potential or that possibility of it selling? So I know that was kind of.
No, I think that's perfect. It's beautiful because it all does really center around mindset,
Right.
And I have a kind of an interesting viewpoint about this, is that as I've work with my authors, I get introduced to some of the most amazing people, and I know that these people are meant to be in my life. They are meant to, I'm here to learn. I'm here to continue to grow. I am meant to find ways that I can serve my authors in the best way. And that's, I feel about, meeting you, Rocio, and for you, Alex. And you've come to be somebody that I can refer to other people and say, this is somebody that has a skill set that will really, truly help you, and it's all about how we approach life, how we approach the power of our minds, and even the vibrational frequencies which we all come together, and so I feel like the people that I'm meeting, I always know that this is what was meant to be. And for instance, I met you, Alex, through Christine Howard, whose book is coming out, and I'm working with her for her book to come out in May. And we're working on we'll be doing ads with her. And it's beautiful because it's always that connection from one person to the other that that this is just meant to be. This is the way it is. And when you have faith in that, then you tap into that and realize that, we're being looked out for. We're being guided to the right things that here. What an amazing world we're living in right now.
Right.
So for in your journeys to Ecuador, Alex, you mentioned that it holds a special part in your heart. What was the biggest shift that you had as far as that trip and what it exposed you to?
What I love the most about traveling is just the ability to see into the way that another society operates, one that is not similar to your own, and realizing that people can be totally happy living a completely different way. So that's probably the biggest part, is just it exposes you to the fact that you don't have to just go day by day living life in a way that's been taught to you. You can go searching for other different cultures and different ways of achieving happiness, or I don't think happiness is the goal, but achieving joy in life. And so what it comes down to is, really just being able to be cognizant of what you are, the vibrations that you're letting into your life. And so for me, it was just a place where I could go and really be exposed to a culture that is very different than my own, and be able to learn from that, and even be able to bring back and share some of those things with peers who are struggling with similar issues.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So we've all been on a journey of life that has brought us, interestingly, to this very conversation, and to understand that we all serve in a different way, and yet we serve in the same way. That what we're bringing is really meant to be that we're shining out the light in incredible ways. And so for you, Rocio, in this conversation, well, if somebody's listening, what was the key message that you would say is that you would want them to hear and to know?
That's a very profound question, which requires a very profound answer, and I don't know if I have it.
That's okay. I'll give you a moment to think about it and
Yeah,
circle over to
yeah,
Alex because he's had half a second to think about it.
Oh, man.
yeah.
Oh, I was ready for that. Just oh man, yeah, that was being put on the spot. Yeah, now I feel the pressure myself. Rocio, do you have something that you've come up with yet, or?
Yeah. No,
Well,
I think it kind of circles back to what we were talking about just a moment ago, that we that it's so important to really focus on the light, especially because of not only the pandemic, but just the events that have occurred have been so soul breaking. They've been just shattering, and so it's so important to really focus on joy and light, and that there are different ways of being in the world, and that these are probably things that we do have to see and kind of face and acknowledge as part of our own growth, as maybe as a society or as a world, really. But that rather than focusing on that, what are the real lessons here? What are the lessons that we have to learn as a humanity, right? We're learning about how we have to be more conscientious about the world. We have to be more conscientious about the planet. We have to be better human beings to each other, right? We've had so many opportunities to see that divisiveness and conflict can only creates more division, and so these are just examples of why it's so important to drift away from that, and that and I don't know, I actually, and I'm feeling a lot of comfort in hearing Alex speak as well, because I feel like the younger generations do come in with a different mindset. I mean, I see it in my son, maybe 5% of the time. he's a 17-year-old boy, and it's interesting. But I do see that they're that they have a different perspective, and I feel comfort in knowing that they will be the future leaders, right? They're going to be the ones who will be running the world. And so yeah, I know that was a very
no, I think it's beautiful. No, it really do, and I think our young people are coming in with a different. I don't know whether it's a different frequency, different way of looking at life, different anything. And
I think so.
I really feel strongly about that because I have almost 11 grandchildren, and I watch these kids and they simply amaze me, and they don't learn the way traditionally is thought to be accepted.
Right.
For some of them, school is just not their thing.
Yeah.
But they're brilliant, and they teach me every day. And I'm just like in total awe at they see life differently, and they need to learn differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working with an author right now that has the name of his book is Cracking the Learning Code. And he's a scientist. He's an elderly gentleman, but I'm telling you, he's saying that, what's happening in the schools today where kids have to sit at a desk and learn in that traditional way, the kids it isn't happening. And he teaches how and he's, as a scientist, he's developed this. And when I homeschooled my girls, I used this book called The Learning Revolution. And I didn't use the traditional books, and I found out how much I did not learn when I was in school. And I learned right alongside with my kids. But he says, if you learn in a certain way, you can tap into a portion of your brain that is for long-term memory. Because he talks about, so you go to a 3-day event, and it's this hour after hour of people talking, and you're supposed to be learning, and they come back and say, what did you learn? And you maybe remember one thing, because it's just so much information. And he says, so in 3 to 7 minutes, you should be able to learn a concept and remember it forever. And we don't learn that way, but we're just getting ready to launch his book probably in June. And I'm just so excited because he goes deeply into the spiritual aspect of it, but tapping into, he's getting all kinds of awards with school systems. They've practiced this in the school systems. He's got one pilot school in Canada that was at the very lowest of all the ratings of schools, and they started applying what he was teaching, and now they are the very highest in Canada. And it's just, to me, it's just like, thank you, because I know that I didn't learn enough in school, and look at what's changing. What beautiful things that are changing as a result. I have one grandchild. I mean, she can draw, she can listen to you, and she can start drawing this stuff. And she's got a single mom with three little girls, and school is not her thing. But what she brings to the world with just her art, it's her way of learning. It's beautiful. And so we tap into what she's interested in, and she grows, and she does very well. Tap in, make her sit and do the stuff that she has absolutely no interest. That doesn't happen. So what a blessed time. And I think I really think that COVID has served a beautiful purpose. And while it's not fun, I think it's also given people a time where they had to really, really go deep and understand themselves, and how am I relating with my family? How am I, what am I bringing to the world? And what am I here for? Because it gave a pause. It gave a pause for our earth.
Yes.
And it gave a pause for humanity in general, to really kind of say, what are we here for? What are we doing? Why are we here? And what can we do better? So I just feel very blessed to have the two of you today in this conversation, and what a delight to see you as a young man, Alex, what you're bringing to the world. Thank you. And I know that you'll be able to help those that are coming behind you to really see a whole different way too. Thank you.
I really appreciate those kind words.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for having me back. This is not the conversation I expected for us to have. It's been very fun.
Our conversations on this CB show is usually an expert and an author, and I try to match people up, and always it's kind of spins around in a different way, and it comes back to, let's look at what we're bringing to the world, what we're doing in this world, and what we can tap into that makes it amazing. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So, Rocio, thank you. As I skim your chapter, there's so much. One of the things you say is, today I've come to realize that our life experiences, even those of great trauma and pain, can carry the greatest gifts of transformation, expansion, and wisdom. When we pause, bless, and have gratitude for the trauma pain we've endured, it liberates us and propels us forward toward deeper healing, allowing us to become the truest version of ourselves. Thank you. So what more can I say? That it really, truly sums it up. And thank you to both of you for being here.
Thank you, Becky.
All right.